The U.S. presidential election outcome still up in the air hours after the polls closed. Donald Trump claims victory over Joe Biden, with many votes in key swing states still uncounted. And a Democratic drive to win control of the U.S. Senate appears to fall short.
Hello and a very good evening. America is on edge tonight with the outcome of the country's highly charged and bitterly fought presidential election up in the air.
Adding to the drama was U.S. President Donald Trump declaring victory over his Democrat opponent, Joe Biden, even before many votes had been counted in some key swing states. As it stands, Democratic challenger Joe Biden has garnered 224 electoral college votes compared with U.S. President Donald Trump's tally of 213. Biden is also ahead on the popular vote count. Both men need 270 electoral college votes to win, with the race still too close to call in several states.
Now, several key states still have hundreds of thousands of ballots outstanding, with the election outcome in the balance.
But as the cliffhanger continues, both candidates remain confident the final results will favor them. In an early morning appearance at the White House, the president cried foul over the election results.
This is a major fraud in our nation. We want the law to be used in a proper manner. So we'll be going to the U.S. Supreme Court. We want all voting to stop. We don't want them to find any ballots at 4 o'clock in the morning and add them to the list, okay?
Trump produced no evidence of foul play, but he did make premature claims of victories in several key states.
We will win this, and as far as I'm concerned, we already have won it.
In his home state of Delaware, Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden remained optimistic, but he urged caution until all votes are counted, telling supporters to keep the faith.
It's not my place or Donald Trump's place to declare who's won this election. That's the decision of the American people. But I'm optimistic about this outcome.
If there are uncertainties about the election results, there are no uncertainties about the voter turnout. With well over 100 million Americans voting early and millions more waiting in lines on Election Day, the campaigns have clearly struck a nerve in a nation weary of the pandemic.
Our president isn't doing much about it when it comes to COVID, and that's a big factor in who I'm voting for today as well, because we're like 9 months into COVID, and it's still getting worse and not getting better.
I want Trump to win. I like his policies, and my age, that's what I'm going to vote for.
Several states are allowing mailed-in votes to be accepted after Election Day as long as they were postmarked by Tuesday. In closely watched Pennsylvania, mountains of absentee mail-in ballots are being processed.
We have about 65 to 70 people working each shift to open these ballots. It's a very manual and labor-intensive process.
The majority of mail-in ballots were cast by Democrats, and Trump has suggested they shouldn't be counted. The Supreme Court has signaled it would be open to revisiting a state ruling allowing the extension. Well, meanwhile, a Democratic drive to win control of the Senate appeared to fall short, with Democrats picking up only one Republican-held seat, while 6 other races remain undecided.
While Republicans are holding firm in the Senate, Democrats look on track to maintain their majority in the House. Still, the Democrats failed to expand its hold on the House as they had been hoping to do before the election. In the Senate, the GOP looks on track to maintain its majority pending final results. Tony Sabine has that story.
With all the drama of the presidential race, you'd be forgiven for forgetting that there were other electoral battles taking place. At stake was not just the White House, but also control of the U.S. Senate and House of Representatives. Democrats and Republicans battle for control of the upper house in at least half a dozen closely fought races around the country. But it appeared that the GOP would hold their seats in several contests that had seemed up for grabs only weeks ago. Though favored by forecasters to emerge with a Senate majority, Democrats had defeated only Republican Senator Cory Gardner in Colorado as Election Day ended on November 3rd. That was quickly offset by the loss of Democratic Senator Doug Jones in Alabama. 4 Republican incumbents fended off Democratic challenges, including Lindsey Graham of South Carolina.
Back to the Senate with a purpose. I've never wanted my job more than I do now. I never appreciated my job more than I do now. I've never been more grateful to have it, and I think I've never been more prepared to do it than I am right now.
Still, the outcome of elections for the US Senate may not be clear for some time. Final results from a number of contests are likely to be unavailable for days and, in at least one case, months. One of 2 Georgia Senate races is projected to go to a January runoff between Republican Senator Kelly Loeffler and Democrat challenger Raphael Warnock. While the Republicans look to have done enough to hold their ground in the Senate, Democrats appear on course to retain their majority in the House of Representatives. But their expectations of expanding their majority in the House seem tenuous, as they lost 3 incumbents and failed to oust any Republican lawmakers in initial returns. Tony Saboin, TVB News.
Here in Hong Kong, business leaders have been watching the U.S. election closely. The next president has the ability to set the stage and tone of Sino-U.S. relations for the coming 4 years.
So what might be the election result meaning for businesses here in Hong Kong? Jackie Lin tells us more.
Amid the tug-of-war between the 2 great powers, Hong Kong could be the inevitable casualty or beneficiary. And the collateral damage brought on by the Sino-U.S. trade war has been witnessed and weathered by Raymond Young, CEO of the Chinese Manufacturers Association of Hong Kong. He believes the worst is over. Whichever candidate wins, trade relations will improve, even if it's Trump.
If he wins the re-election, the Trump administration may not enhance the tariffs imposed on China, because Trump also needs to, deliver economically.
Even more so if the winner is Joe Biden.
Biden may be more inclined to respect the international trading order. He may be more civilized, in his dialogue with China.
But that's only if Biden chooses to play nice.
But if he manages to galvanize the support of all the other allies like the EU, they may, as a bloc, be able to exert that much more pressure, on China as a trading rival and also as a rival nation.
That's especially so when politics comes to the mix.
Very strong on ideology, and so they would be very hard on China with regards to human rights issues, self-rule and democracy issues in Hong Kong.
Still, he believes the city has developed the resilience to handle any trade hurdles that come its way.
For Hong Kong's exporters, for the past 2 years, we have diversified our markets, we have cut costs, we have actually shifted our manufacturing bases outside China. I don't think there is room for a lot of more draconian measures to be imposed.
Jackie Lin, TVB News.
Security Chief John Lee and the police are denying that yesterday's arrest of an RTHK reporter was an attack on the media. Choi Yuk-ling, who helped produce a documentary about the Yuen Long mob attacks on July 21st last year, has been charged with making false statements during car ownership searches.
Pan-democratic lawmakers have criticized the arrest for posing a threat to press freedom. Several associations of news professionals and the Director of Broadcasting have expressed concerns that Choi Yuk-ling's arrest could have a chilling effect on the entire news industry. Chief Superintendent of the Police Public Relations Branch, Kwok Ka-chun, stressed today that the police force respects press freedom but is obliged to take action after receiving complaints from the public. The decision was also backed by Secretary for Security John Lee, who insists the arrest is not targeting any specific industry.
If police receive a complaint, they have to act accordingly and do investigation according to what the complaint is all about. This is no different from any investigation that police has been doing as a result of a complaint.
Lee added the RTHK program in question is suspected to have broken privacy rules by making public details of the car owners. Pan-democratic lawmakers didn't buy the security chief's explanation.
We avoided the questions pertaining to using public interest as a defense for reporters in the pursuit of the truth to obtain information from public service departments.
Choi, who co-produced an episode of Hong Kong Connection, is now accused of inappropriately using the Transport Department's vehicle license plate search system. Through the system, RTHK program workers got in touch with the owners of cars allegedly linked to the Yuen Long mob attacks. Police say information obtained through the search system should only be used in traffic-related matters, as Choi had declared on the Transport Department's application form before conducting the searches. Mainland media are calling the abrupt blocking of Ant Group's initial public offering not only essential, but also legitimate and reasonable. Kana Chu tells us more.
Just 2 days before Ant Group's market debut, Chinese regulators slammed the brakes on what would have been the world's largest initial public offering. A perceived regulation criticism made by billionaire Jack Ma in late October is said to be what slapped down the internet finance titan.
好的创新不怕监管，但是怕昨天的方式去监管。
Ma slammed the regulatory system as being out of date. The Alibaba founder is a co-founder and controlling stakeholder of Ant Group. Ahead of the last-minute suspension, Ant's initial stock price was set at $80 per share.
In a very short run, they need to make a lot of adjustment in terms of to satisfy the regulatory demand. And most likely that's going to affect their profitability in the future. By the time they can list the company again, probably that's going to affect the value and how the market value the company as well.
Quoting Zhang Zixue, a professor at the China University of Political Science and Law, the China Securities Journal said the decision was an act of responsibility supported by ample institutional grounds. The Xinhua News Agency affiliated publication also highlighted problems pertaining to fair competition, data security, and privacy concerns that Ant and its intermediaries should fully evaluate and prevent. In a separate commentary, another state-backed newspaper, Economic Daily, defended regulators' maintenance of an open, fair, and just market. It said the suspension was necessary for the protection of millions of financial consumers and investors. In a word of advice, it remarked the top priority of Ant Group is to implement corrections as required by regulatory authorities. Kana Chu, TVB News.
The city reported 3 new COVID-19 cases today. 2 are local infections. Both are linked to the staycation cluster emerging from a resort in Mui Wo. One of them, a 26-year-old man, lives in Tai Po and spent 3 days at the resort late last month with a 26-year-old woman who was diagnosed earlier. The other one is a 54-year-old woman whose family member has dined together with the 26-year-old female patient. The other newly reported case involves a foreign worker arriving from India.
And still to come on tonight's news, the U.S. State Department clears the potential sale of 4 sophisticated aerial drones to Taiwan. And locally, 6 arrested in a fraud case involving the sale of gold bars.
Welcome back to TVB News. Austrian police have raided 18 properties and arrested 14 people in a massive manhunt for possible accomplices of a convicted jihadist who opened fire on crowds in Vienna. The attacker killed at least 4 people and injured more than 20 on Monday night before being shot dead by police.
Authorities have identified the assailant as a 20-year-old man who had Austrian and North Macedonian nationality. As Leslie Tang reports, he was released from jail less than a year ago.
In the aftermath of the late-night gun rampage in Vienna, Austrian Chancellor Sebastian Kurz and Austria's president visited the scene of the tragedy. They laid wreaths and candles to commemorate the victims of what's being called a terrorist attack.
Aber klar ist,
We will not be intimidated by the terrorists. We will defend our fundamental values, our way of life, and our democracy with all our might. We will seek out and hunt down the perpetrators, those behind them, and like-minded people, and bring them to justice, Kurz said. The usually vibrant city center of Vienna was eerily quiet following the incident. The gunman opened fire at 6 places, including a bar near Vienna's main synagogue, before being shot dead by police. Austria's Interior Minister Karl Nehammer said it's come to light the killer recently served about 8 months of a 22-month sentence for trying to travel to Syria to join Islamic State. He has been identified as Kuzhtim Fizulai, a 20-year-old Austrian with North Macedonian nationality who was released from jail less than a year ago. Nehammer said Fizulai was released early because he gave the impression he had de-radicalized. The Interior Minister said a second gunman has not been spotted in videos inspected so far, but a high level of security will be maintained. The Austrian government has called for 3 days of official mourning. Leslie Tang, TVB News.
The U.S. State Department cleared the potential sale of 4 sophisticated aerial drones to Taiwan on Tuesday. The deal could be worth up to $600 million US. It would be the first such sale since U.S. policy on the export of drone technology was loosened by the Trump administration. China's foreign ministry has since hit back at the sale as tensions between Washington and Beijing continue to escalate. Foreign Ministry spokesman Wang Wenbin said the U.S. has sent out the wrong signals to the so-called Taiwan military forces. Wang added that China will take legitimate and necessary responses in light of the changing circumstances brought on by the deal. The U.S. is also reportedly in the process of completing 4 other sales of sophisticated military equipment to Taiwan.
Chief Executive Carrie Lam today met with officials from various government ministries in Beijing. This morning, multiple vehicles arrived at the Diaoyutai State Guest House where Carrie Lam is staying. The CE met with the Minister of Commerce, Zhong Shan. She also had talks with officials from the Ministry of Science and Technology, as well as Civil Aviation Administration. According to sources, she will seek Beijing's approval for quarantine-free travels between Hong Kong and the mainland, without zero coronavirus infection in the city as a precondition.
Cathay Pacific's flight attendants union says the airline is unwilling to compromise and accept their counter-offers. This comes after a 2-hour meeting with management and the Labor Department. The deadline is today for cabin crew members to sign a new contract which would reduce salaries and benefits.
The company turned down each and every of our demands. They have they have no sincerity in answering and extending the deadline or to make it a temporary contract. The company still consider those who don't sign the new contract as terminated. As termination. So we will proceed and we will consult further legal actions and decide accordingly.
The union later met with the 2,000-strong pilots group. It remains unclear how many pilots will sign the new agreement. Police arrested 6 people in a fraud case involving the sale of gold bars.
20 people were allegedly scammed to the tune of $100 million. Pinky Wong reports.
These are the fake documents and certificates that fooled the victims. Police said a local investment company sold gold bars to investors between 2018 and 2019. The scammers then asked the buyers to lease the gold bars to a listed company for a guaranteed annual return of up to 7.5%. Officers said the victims received interest payments for a few months before the investment firm closed down earlier this year. They ended up losing around $95 million.
They use a Hong Kong-listed company as a guarantor of the investment, and I think that's the catch for the present case.
One of the 20 alleged victims is a local resident. The rest are from the mainland. The group included businessmen and lawyers.
They might use the greed of the people to fall into the scam. So it doesn't mean the highly educated people cannot be deceived. they might similarly fall into the same scam like others.
Officers arrested 3 men and 3 women yesterday, aged between 26 and 51, for alleged conspiracy to defraud. 4 others are now wanted by police. Pinky Wong, TVB News.
That's the news for tonight. Thanks for watching.
Good night.